At the foot of Japan's most sacred mountain, Mount Fuji, lies a forest so thick and still, it almost seems to breathe on its own. Aokigahara, often called the Sea of Trees, stretches over 35 square kilometers. To look at it from above is to see a lush, undisturbed sea of green. But to enter it is something entirely different. As you walk beneath the canopy, the world begins to change. The dense trees muffle every sound. The volcanic rock below your feet, left behind from Mount Fuji's last eruption over 1,000 years ago, swallows footsteps, echoes, and even voices. The air feels heavy, but it is not the weather. It is the stillness, thick, unmoving, and ancient. Even birds rarely sing here. Aokigahara is not just a forest. It is a silence made real. For centuries, the Japanese people have told stories about this forest. Ghosts, they say, live among the trees, spirits of the lost, souls who cannot move on. Some call them yurei, pale, grief-stricken figures that wander, searching for peace they never found in life. Others say the forest itself is alive, luring people deeper, confusing their sense of direction, making sure they never leave. But Aokigahara's reputation was not always tied to death. In earlier times, it was a place of myth and mystery. In the 19th century, when famine struck and families could no longer feed themselves, legends tell of a practice known as yubeizud, where the elderly or the sick were carried into remote places like Aokigahara and left to die, sacrificed so the rest of the family might survive. Whether these stories are true or not, they added to the forest's growing legend. Death, it seemed, always found its way here. In the modern era, Aokigahara became known for something else, something even darker. It became a place where people went to end their lives. By the 1970s, reports were emerging of bodies found deep within the forest, people who had disappeared quietly, walking into the trees and never returning. Every year, local police and volunteers would find more. In the early 2000s, the numbers became overwhelming. Dozens of suicides were recorded annually, some years over 100. It was no longer a secret. The world began to take notice. Journalists called it the suicide forest. Documentaries were made, articles written. It became a symbol of Japan's silent mental health crisis, a country where suicide has long been a cultural taboo, but also disturbingly common. The quiet dignity of Aokigahara was replaced by something else, a cold fascination, a kind of morbid curiosity, and in some corners of the internet, even exploitation. Despite efforts by Japanese authorities to reduce media coverage and discourage suicide in the area, Aokigahara's reputation only grew. Signs were placed at trail entrances, urging people to think of their families, to seek help, to reconsider. Patrols were increased. Some areas of the forest were closed, but still, people came, and in their absence, they left behind more than just footprints. To walk through Aokigahara today is to step through a graveyard with no markers. Abandoned tents, torn photographs, faded notebooks, old shoes, bottles of medicine. These are not relics of camping trips. They are the last possessions of people who planned never to return. Volunteers who search the forest, often out of duty, not desire, have spoken about what they've seen. Some bodies are found hanging from trees, others lying peacefully on blankets. Some leave notes, apologies, final thoughts. Others leave nothing at all. There is a tradition among some who enter the forest to tie a string or ribbon to a tree near the path and carry it with them as they walk deeper. If they change their mind, they can follow the string back, but many never do, and the strings are often found hanging loose, caught in the windless air, leading nowhere. And then there are the stories. People speak of hearing voices in the woods, whispers with no source, of footsteps behind them when no one is there, of figures glimpsed just beyond the edge of vision, white, pale, unmoving. Some say the forest confuses your mind, turns you around, hides the path. Even experienced hikers have gotten lost here, disoriented and panicked. Compasses often malfunction due to the magnetic iron in the lava rock, adding to the sense of confusion. You cannot rely on GPS, you cannot rely on your phone, and after a few minutes, you might not even rely on yourself. But not all of Aokigahara is sorrowful. At the forest's edges, tourists take short walks along safe trails. School children learn about Mount Fuji's geology. The forest, after all, is still a place of nature, old, untouched, beautiful in its own eerie way. But the deeper you go, the more the energy shifts. Locals know they respect it. Few venture far without a reason. Some spiritual leaders believe the forest holds too much death, that its soil is soaked, not just with lava, but with sadness, that the grief of so many people has left an imprint on the land itself. Others say the spirits who died here remain trapped, unwilling or unable to pass on, echoing through the trees in silence. And yet, for all its darkness, Aokigahara is not a place of evil. It is not a horror movie set. It is a real forest, with real stories, real lives, and real sorrow. It reflects not just death, but the pain people carried with them in life. The people who came here did not come because they were weak. They came because they were hurting, often quietly, in a world that didn't hear them. In recent years, Japan has taken more steps to address mental health and suicide prevention. Hotlines have been expanded. Cultural conversations are slowly changing. There is still a long way to go, but fewer lives are being lost in Aokigahara than in decades past. The signs at the forest entrance remain. They say, "Your life is a precious gift. Think of your family. Think of your future. There is always help." They stand there quietly, just like the trees waiting. Aokigahara will likely always carry its history, its silence, its shadows. But maybe, just maybe, it doesn't have to carry our fear. Perhaps it is a place that asks us to listen, not just to the forest, but to each other, to hear what isn't said, to look behind the smile, to notice when someone is walking into the woods, not with their feet, but in their mind. Because the most haunting thing about Aokigahara isn't the ghosts, it's how many people walked into it alone, and how many didn't have to.